Welcome, boys and girls. Christine here with a discussion about the Skaven in Total War Warhammer 3 Immortal Empires. And I think the Skaven are a really good race in the game, and they represent something about how the community can be at its best and both at its worst. And when we talk about community, we can also talk about content creators. Because if you look at the Skaven lore, yes, Skaven are chaotic, they're messy, they're loud, they backstab each other. Lots of these things happen. But do you know who stopped Nagash in both the end times and during his initial rise to power? It was the Skaven. And especially during the first time Nagash came up, they sacrificed a lot when most people didn't even know about Nagash. The battle for Nagashazar was biblical, if you want to call it. It involved a lot of moving pieces. Involved a lot of sacrifice by the Skaven. So the Skaven were genuine heroes against Nagash, and they were still Skaven. But here's the thing: even the worst person who looks like a Skaven, because that's how some people can look online as content creators. They can look very Skaven. Chaotic, messy, they yell very loud, etc. But they can be genuine people like, Teclis or Carl Franz, people who show up, get the job done, they're doing it for a reason. In my case, as a content creator, it's because I do care about this game. I do care about the path that it's taken. That aside, when we also consider Skaven, let's consider something about the game Skaven. Something that's important with respect to how these things work out in real life. Because Skaven, when you look at the game, they're being pushed to constantly be backstabbing, to constantly betray, to constantly annoy, to constantly just make a deal and break it. But the incentive structure of Warhammer 3 does not suit them doing that. In fact, it's best if you're playing a Skaven or if you're a player or a content creator to actually make a deal, make a diplomatic deal. Like if you're going to ally a faction, keep that alliance, because if you threaten a faction, if you, declare war and then you break your bond, or for instance, I declare war on Arnesta, your reliability goes very low, and you don't want to do that. Sure, we look at Ikit Claw, he has nuclear weapons, they're very powerful, but it's just not a wise idea to ruin your reliability as either a community member or a content creator, because trust is very difficult to acquire, and it's built over time, and it's never instant. It's taken me 16 years to get my channel to this point. It took a legend of Total War a significant amount of time to build his own community. And he lost trust in certain people. He personally lost trust in Creative Assembly because it goes both ways. Creative Assembly also needs to meet us as creators. Now, in-game terms, Skaven are very interesting because they have the ability of recruiting and increasing capacity of heroes very, very quickly and efficiently, and they do have a lot of hero types. They have a lot of unit types. The big problem is with infantry, because Storm Vermin, who are the infantry that are war for them, not clan rats, are either too expensive or they take too long to recruit. It's actually both of these things at the same time. This is actually the reason I don't like Ikit Claw's campaign, because yes, Ikit Claw has a lot of power. Yes, he has the workshop. Yes, he can do a lot of different things in a lot of different ways. That is not something I will deny. But between his starting position, the dynamics of that starting position, and the fact that his go-to trick is just like, oh, if there's a problem, just throw a nuke at it, that is not a balanced campaign or a good campaign in the context of Warhammer 3. That's just a messy, ridiculous campaign. It's Skaven at its worst, though it's interesting to note, sometimes when you're dealing with a Nagash in a video game, purely in a video game, or in Warhammer lore, you sometimes need to use it, because in the End Times lore specifically, and I'm only referring to Warhammer 3 lore, or Warhammer lore, Nagash almost won. And when Nagash almost wins, he looks to obliterate everything and everyone, and that's the point you do use Ikit Claw at the strongest point he has, because there's no other option left, unfortunately, at this stage. But let me talk about the campaign I actually do enjoy as Skaven and why I think it's a really good one to use. Now, the campaign I personally like is Queek Headtaker, and the reason I like this campaign is, one, you start with a significant number of chieftains over here, so you have heroes showing up, you have capability, even though you only start with clan rat recruitment, but you can also get various different units very, very quickly. Like, for instance, you can go in Hidden Lair, you can get assassins, you can go with warp grinders, you can get warp fire throwers. That's good. And Queek's campaign is very straightforward in how you do it. And when you have a straightforward path, just go and take Carrick 8 peaks and then hold it. That makes things less complicated. And also, you technically start with this Underkeep building, but it's actually best to just get rid of it, get the money, get the cash, push forward. And due to Skaven settlement mechanics, the food that you get as Queek Headtaker very quickly allows you to, okay, I'm going to take the settlement as tier 1. We're going to get that clan rat building, we're going to keep it, and then go for Caracas Gall. And in Caracas Gall, we make it a tier 3 settlement and start building a structure of a campaign that works really well. Furthermore, even though obviously some factions will dislike you, you can make alliances and keep your word and your alliances very quickly with factions, with disorder factions like the Greenskins. Though Order-tied factions are still a choice, still a possibility. I think it would be interesting in the end times if the Skaven could actually choose against Chaos Knight, because they suddenly have become the Order-tied. They're still Skaven, of course. Though emphasis on this point, just because someone, a content creator looks like Skaven, and I think this was the big mistake a lot of people made with Legend of Total War, just because someone looks like Skaven can break the game does not mean that they act like Skaven in real life. Very different dynamic, very different thing. Now, of course, Legend did go too far in his relationship with Grave Assembly, whereas you might wonder how that relationship works between content creator and CA. Well, we have an NDA. It's got pretty clear terms. The important golden rule of it, as Josh explained it, the person Legend had an issue with, is you're free to criticize the product, the company, what they're doing. Just don't make it personal. And don't break the NDA. Don't show things that you're not allowed to show. If there's something unclear, we go, we ask, we discuss, and that's how we sort these things out. It's very simple, boys and girls. It doesn't have to be a complicated, convoluted legal talk that involves 100 fucking lawyers. It's already what the content creator program already does. Now, obviously, for Exalted Champions who get, exclusive access to certain things that aren't public yet, and may never be public, that's a different discussion. But again, just respect the terms, follow the agreement. If you have a confusion, ask first before you reveal anything in public, and that's how you sort it out. And that's, by the way, how Skaven should play. We go with that analogy. It's like, make an agreement, respect the agreement, follow the terms. Military alliances, trade agreements, all that kind of jazz. And just remember, just because you ally a particular faction does not mean certain other factions won't strictly have a problem with you, right? Because, like, if I make a non-aggression pact with these guys, etc., won't be too pleased. I think Skaven are more interesting than one might think. Now, obviously, Skaven in-game are hated by a lot of different factions, but it would be interesting to have the choice of a Skaven campaign where you could kind of decide to be the good guy. Now, obviously, Tankwell doing that would be a bit absurd considering who Tankwell is, but I think it would be an interesting path you could take, as opposed to just trying to drown the world in rats, which is not ideal, because, the Skaven blowing up the moon in end times was also killing a lot of Skaven, which is not how you should do things. But I think it would be interesting to have a Skaven campaign where being restrained and not just going full on Skaven slaves and rats and all that, but actually doing Skaven when, they stopped Nagash the first time around would be good. Now, as for Queek, what I really like about him is the fact that he has Crimson Guard. He can recruit those infantry units and get recruit rank for them on a faction-wide level with local recruitment duration and recruit rank on a local level. He can also get cheaper Storm Vermin, so he actually has that solid front line. There's a lot of times in Warhammer history or Total War history where people have thought that making complicated systems, like Sea Lord Aisland, for instance, is a perfect example, makes for a good campaign. But just because you made a campaign complicated does not make it good. Sometimes some of the best campaigns are relatively straightforward and very simple. Of course, we could talk about the update to Skaven economy, especially for settlements that only have 2 regions in them or a single region in them, especially with regards to growth. But that's a bigger game issue, though Skaven suffer from it more because they require warpstone generators in order to function with their economy, and without those, their economy does not quite work as well. The emphasis, Skaven can get a lot of money and they can recruit a lot of elite troops. In fact, a lot of the times when you're playing a Skaven campaign, you're fighting against the sheer ridiculous power that they do have in the game. And I think that's a valuable lesson to everyone, as a fan, as a player, and as a content creator, really. Just because you have a loud voice does not mean you should use it. Or just because you have a lot of power does not mean letting that power get to your head is a smart thing. That's all I had to say. Christine, signing out. Stay tuned for more.